Have you ever wondered how a civilization in the middle of the desert managed to thrive for more than 3,000 years? How they built enormous stone pyramids that still stand today, even though they had no cranes or machines? Or how their inventions in farming, medicine, and writing shaped the world we live in now? This is the incredible story of ancient Egypt, one of the most fascinating civilizations in all of history. It began more than 5,000 years ago, around 3100 BCE, when Upper and Lower Egypt were united under a single ruler. For over 3 millennia, Egypt flourished while many other empires rose and fell. What gave Egypt such long-lasting strength? The answer starts with the Nile River. The Nile was the heartbeat of Egypt. Every year it flooded, leaving behind rich, fertile soil that turned desert land into farmland. This flooding was so predictable that the Egyptians built one of the first calendars in history to plan their planting and harvesting around it. Farmers grew wheat and barley, which became bread and beer, the staples of the Egyptian diet. They grew flax, which was spun into linen for clothing, and from the papyrus plant that grew thick along the riverbanks, they made paper, rope, mats, baskets, and even small boats. Without the Nile, Egypt would never have survived. At the top of Egyptian society stood the pharaoh, the most powerful person in the kingdom. The pharaoh wasn't just a political leader, but the ultimate authority, responsible for keeping the land stable, for leading armies in battle, and for overseeing massive building projects. Some pharaohs became legends in history. Narmer is remembered as the one who first united the country. Hatshepsut, one of the few female rulers, expanded trade across the ancient world and built beautiful temples. Ramses II ruled for over 60 years, leaving behind more monuments than almost any other ruler. And of course there is Tutankhamun, the boy king, whose tomb was discovered in 1922 filled with treasures that dazzled the entire world. The most famous symbols of ancient Egypt are the pyramids. These were monumental tombs built for pharaohs, designed not only to honor them in life but to preserve their memory for eternity. The largest of them all, the Great Pyramid of Giza, was built over 4,500 years ago for Pharaoh Khufu. It took more than 2 million massive stone blocks, each weighing several tons, and somehow the Egyptians managed to move, cut, and stack them with astonishing precision. For almost 4,000 years, the Great Pyramid was the tallest human-made structure on Earth. And even today, engineers and historians debate exactly how such a feat was possible without modern technology. The pyramids were more than just tombs. They were statements of power, achievements in architecture, and the result of highly organized labor, careful planning, and extraordinary skill. Life in ancient Egypt wasn't just about kings and pyramids. Most Egyptians were farmers living in small mud brick houses near the Nile. Their days began at sunrise and ended at sunset. Men worked the fields, harvested crops, and tended animals, while women managed households, prepared food, and cared for children. Meals were simple but filling, usually bread, beer, onions, vegetables, and sometimes fish from the Nile. Children played with toys made of wood or clay, such as dolls, balls, and little carved animals. Cats were especially loved in Egyptian homes, not only as pets but as protectors against rats and snakes. There was also a whole class of skilled workers who shaped Egypt's culture and achievements. Craftsmen carved statues, painted walls, and built furniture. Artisans created jewelry of gold and precious stones. Scribes were among the most respected members of society because they could read and write the Egyptian system of hieroglyphs. With more than 700 symbols, hieroglyphs were used to record everything from laws and taxes to stories and historical events. For centuries, the meaning of this writing was lost, until the discovery of the Rosetta Stone in 1799. Because the stone contained the same text written in Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs, scholars were able to finally unlock the secrets of Egypt's written language, giving us insight into thousands of years of history. Egyptians were also pioneers in science and medicine. They created one of the earliest calendars, dividing the year into 365 days, which is still the model for the calendar we use today. They studied the stars to predict the flooding of the Nile and to guide their agricultural cycles. In mathematics, they learned how to measure land and calculate complex building designs. Their knowledge of geometry was key to constructing temples and pyramids with such accuracy. In medicine, they treated wounds, set broken bones, and used herbs to cure illnesses. Papyrus scrolls describe remedies for everything from headaches to stomach problems, showing that Egyptian doctors were centuries ahead of their time. Over the centuries, Egypt built not only pyramids but massive temples and statues that still stand today. The temples at Karnak and Luxor, the towering statues of Abu Simbel, carved into cliffs by Ramses II, and the sprawling Valley of the Kings, where many pharaohs were buried, are all reminders of their remarkable achievements. But perhaps the most famous discovery of all was the tomb of Tutankhamun. When archaeologist Howard Carter opened the sealed chambers in 1922, he uncovered over 5,000 artifacts, including the golden mask of the young pharaoh. For the first time, the modern world got a glimpse of the splendor of Egyptian royal burials, and it sparked a wave of fascination with ancient Egypt that continues today. Of course, no empire lasts forever. After centuries of strength, Egypt faced many challenges. Foreign invasions, internal struggles, and shifting trade routes weakened its power. The Nubians, Assyrians, Persians, and eventually the Greeks all ruled Egypt at different times. In 30 BCE, after the reign of Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh, Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. The age of the pharaohs was over. And yet, thousands of years later, the legacy of ancient Egypt remains everywhere. Tourists from all over the world travel to see the pyramids, the temples, and the treasures displayed in museums. Modern language still carries Egyptian influence in words like pharaoh, pyramid, and obelisk. Their advances in farming, writing, medicine, and architecture laid foundations that shaped later civilizations. When we think about ancient Egypt, we often focus on gold and monuments, but at its heart, it was a society of people. Farmers who worked the land, builders who hauled stone blocks, scribes who recorded history, artisans who created beauty, and rulers who dreamed of being remembered forever. Together, they created one of the longest-lasting and most remarkable civilizations the world has ever seen. And although Egypt's empire eventually fell, its legacy has proved truly timeless. Even after 5,000 years, the pyramids still rise against the desert sky, reminding us of what human creativity, determination, and skill can achieve. Ancient Egypt is not just history. It is a lasting symbol of what civilization itself can accomplish.